This is a recitation of excerpts from Chapter 2 of Shinran's masterwork called The True Teaching, Practice, and Realization of the Pure Land Way. The brief title of Chapter 2 is The True Practice of the Pure Land Way. The more extensive chapter title is A Collection of Passages Revealing the True Practice of the Pure Land Way. Reverently contemplating Amida's directing of virtue for our going forth to the Pure Land, I find that there is great practice. There is great Shinjin. The great practice is to say the name of the Tathagata, of unhindered light. This practice, embodying all good acts and possessing all roots of virtue, is perfect and most rapid in bringing them to fullness. It is the treasure ocean of virtues that is suchness or true reality. For this reason, it is called great practice. This practice arises from the vow of great compassion, which is known as, quote, the vow that all the Buddhas extol the name, the vow that all the Buddhas say the name, and the vow that all the Buddhas praise the name. It might also be called, quote, the vow of directing virtue for our going forth, and the vow in which the saying of the name is selected. The vow that all the Buddhas say the name is stated in the larger sutra. Quote, if, when I attain Buddhahood, the countless Buddhas throughout the worlds of the 10 quarters do not all praise and say my name, may I not attain the supreme enlightenment. The sutra further states, when I have fulfilled the Buddha way, my name shall pervade the 10 quarters. If there be any place it is not heard, I vow not to attain the supreme enlightenment. For the sake of all beings, I will open forth the treasure store and give away universally its treasure of virtues. Among the multitudes of beings, I will always preach the Dharma with a lion's roar. The sutra passage declaring the fulfillment of this vow states, the Buddha Tathagatas throughout the 10 quarters, countless as the sands of the Ganges, are one in praising the majestic power and the virtues inconceivably profound of the Buddha of immeasurable life. Further it states, the power of the Buddha's primal vow is such that those who, hearing the name, aspire for birth, all reach that land, their attainment of non-retrogression coming about of itself. These passages reveal that saying the name breaks through all the ignorance of sentient beings and fulfills all their aspirations. Saying the name is the right act, supreme, true, and excellent. The right act is the Nembutsu. The Nembutsu is Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu is right-mindedness. Let this be known. Nagarjuna offers praise in a verse. O Buddha, the wisdom of immeasurable light, whose body is like a mountain of pure gold, I now, in body, speech, and thought, place hands together and bow my head in worship. Those who think on Amida Buddha's immeasurable power and virtues immediately enter the stage of the definitely settled. For this reason, I constantly think on Amida. If persons aspire to attain Buddhahood and think on Amida in their hearts, at that moment the Buddha will appear before them. For that reason, I take refuge in the power of that Buddha's primal vow. The Bodhisattvas throughout the 10 quarters also go to Amida's land to make offerings and hear the Dharma. For this reason, I bow my head to Amida. When persons doubt as they plant roots of good, the lotus in which they gain birth will not open. But for those whose Shinjin is pure, the flower opens and immediately they see the Buddha. The Buddhas of the present throughout the 10 quarters, each in their own way, praise the virtues of that Buddha. For this reason, I now take refuge and worship. Carried on the ship of the Eightfold Path, one crosses the ocean difficult to cross. One crosses oneself and also ferries others across. For this reason I worship Amida, the one freely working. Even were all Buddhas to praise Amida's virtues for kalpas beyond reckoning, they still would fail to exhaust them. For this reason I take refuge in the one of purity. Now, in this way, I extol Amida's immeasurable virtues. Through the merit of this praise, may the Buddha constantly think of me. Vasubandhu's treatise on the Pure Land states, relying on the sutras in which the manifestation of true and real virtues is taught, I compose a verse of aspiration, a condensation that accords with the Buddha's teachings. Contemplating the power of the Buddha's primal vow, I see that no one who encounters it passes by in vain. It quickly brings to fullness and perfection the great treasure ocean of virtues. Tan Luan is asked, in what sense do you speak of birth in the Pure Land? His answer, for the provisionally called, quote, person in this world who practices the 5 gates of mindfulness, the preceding thought is the cause of the succeeding thought. The provisionally called, quote, person of this defiled world, and the provisionally called, quote, person of the Pure Land cannot be definitely called the same or definitely be called different. The same is true of preceding thought and succeeding thought. The reason is that if they were one and the same, then there would be no causality. If they were different, there would be no continuity. Tao Zhou quotes a Mahayana work, which declares, it is not that all other samadhis are not samadhis, for there is a samadhi that can eliminate only greed, but is incapable of eliminating anger and folly. A samadhi that can eliminate only anger, but is incapable of eliminating folly and greed. A samadhi that can eliminate only folly, but cannot eliminate anger. There is a samadhi that can eliminate the obstructions of the present, but not all the obstructions of the past and the future. But if one constantly practices Nembutsu Samadhi, one eliminates all the obstructions of past, present, and future without distinction. If persons hear the virtuous name of Amida, praise the Buddha with joy, and wholeheartedly take refuge, even but a single thought moment, they gain the great benefit. That is, they come to possess the treasure of virtues. Even though the great thousandfold world be filled with fire, pass through immediately to hear the Buddha's name. If one hears, quote, Amida, one will never retrogress. For this reason, I wholeheartedly bow my head in worship. The master of Kwangmin Temple states, it is declared in the Prajnaparamita Sutra, preached by Manjushri, quote, I will elucidate the samadhi of single practice. I encourage you to simply sit alone in a quiet place and, abandoning all confused thoughts, concentrate your mind on the one Buddha. When, without contemplating the Buddha's features, you solely utter the name, in your single-hearted practice you will be able to see Amida Buddha and all the other Buddhas. Shantao was asked, all Buddhas realize the 3 bodies in the same way, and their compassion/wisdom is perfectly fulfilled without any differentiation among them. By worshiping and thinking on one Buddha and saying the Buddha's name, Whatever direction one happens to be facing, one will attain birth. Why do you praise only the Buddha in the West and encourage us solely to worship and say the Nembutsu? His answer: what is realized by all Buddhas is the same and single, but since each of them has reached attainment through their own vow and practice, each has in fact their own causal conditions. Thus the world-honored Amida originally established deep, momentous vows, taking in and saving all beings throughout the 10 quarters, with light and name. When Amida brings sentient beings to realize Shinjin and aspire for birth, then, by saying the name to the end of one's life, or down to but 10 voicings, or a single voicing, one easily attains birth through the power of the Buddha's vow. For this reason, Sakyamuni and the other Buddhas urge us to face the West in particular. Further, Shantao states, watching solely over the sentient beings of the Nembutsu, the Buddha grasps and never abandons them, hence the name Amida. The ocean of Amida's vow of wisdom is deep, vast, unfathomable. Those who hear the name and aspire for birth, all will reach Amida's land. The Buddha instructs me to say the Nembutsu single-heartedly and aspire for birth. May the Buddha's compassion, never abandoning the universal primal vow, grasp me, a disciple. It is stated in the shorter Pure Land liturgy of Nembutsu chant in 5 stages, Sakyamuni Tathagata preached the teaching fully or in summary according to the capacity of the listeners, but this was in order to lead all to reality in the end. For the person who seeks to realize true non-origination, who else can give the teaching? Indeed, Nembutsu Samadhi is the true supreme and profound gate. With the name fulfilled through the 48 vows of Amida, the Dharma King, the Buddha saves sentient beings, taking the power of the vow as central. Sakyamuni Tathagata, always dwelling in the sea of Samadhi, raised his soft slendered hand and said to his father, the king, quote, O king, now you should perform seated meditation and simply say the Nembutsu. Why should you seek no thought by freeing yourself from thought, or non-origination by freeing yourself from origination, or the formless Dharma body by freeing yourself from forms, or emancipation by freeing yourself from words? How great it is! The true Dharma, the ultimate reality, is oneness, and yet in saving beings and benefiting people, one Buddha's great vows differ from another's. For this reason, Sakyamuni is born accommodating himself to this defiled world, and Amida manifests himself in the Pure Land. Although their realms differ, one being defiled and the other pure, the benefit they bestow on beings is the same. Truly, it is the teaching gate of the Pure Land alone that is easy to practice and easy to realize. That western quarter is most excellent, an incomparable land. It is adorned with lotuses of 100 jewels that open forth in 9 different ways. This is due to the name of the Buddha. Hymns according to the Sutra of the Praise of the Pure Land by Fa Cho, disciple of Sakyamuni, indicate, quote, the sacred name of the Tathagata is exceedingly distinct and clear. Throughout the worlds in the 10 quarters it prevails. Solely those who say the name shall attain birth. Avalokiteshvara and Mahastama Prampta come naturally to welcome them. The primal vow of Amida was established to be supremely excellent. With skillful means, in compassion, Amida draws forth foolish beings. Every sentient being gains emancipation. When we say the name, immediately our karmic evil falls away. When foolish beings reach the western quarter, their karmic evil from Kalpa's countlessest particles disappears. Gaining the 6 supernatural powers, they are able to act at will. Rid forever of aging and sickness, they are free from impermanence. Hymns according to the Sutra of the Samadhi of all Buddha's presence by Master Tzu Min indicate, those gathered in the Dharma hall today, you have all passed in birth and death for kalpas countless as the sands of the Ganges. Considering then this human existence, hard is it to obtain. It is like the blossoming of the Undambara flower. Truly, we have come now to hear the Pure Land teachings, so rare to encounter. Truly, we have encountered the opening of the Dharma gate of the Nembutsu. Truly, we have encountered the call of Amida's universal vow. Truly, we have encountered the gathering's aspiration in Shinjin. Truly, we have come today to praise the Nembutsu in accord with the Sutra. Truly, we have come to pledge to be born in the high lotus Dai. Truly, we have encountered no evil spirits in the hall of the Dharma. Truly, we have all been able to come here free of sickness. Truly, we have encountered the fulfillment of the virtue of the 7 days Nembutsu. The 48 vows will unfailingly take us to the Pure Land. Thus, I encourage all those of the same practice in this hall of the Dharma. Let us strive and turn about our heart and aspire to go to the Pure Land. If we ask, where is our true home? It is the 7 treasure Dai in the pond of that land of bliss. Amida Buddha, in his causal stage, made the universal vow. When beings hear my name and think on me, I will come to welcome each of them to my land, not discriminating at all between the poor and the rich and well-born, not discriminating between the inferior and the highly gifted, not choosing the learned and those upholding pure precepts, nor rejecting those who break precepts and whose evil karma is profound. When beings just turn about at heart and say the Nembutsu, it is as if bits of rubble were turned to gold. Master Kyung Huang states, Amida, having fulfilled the 2 adornments of merit and wisdom, gives the practice for attainment of birth to all sentient beings fully and equally. Because the Buddha benefits sentient beings with what he himself has performed, he has brought his virtues to fulfillment in them. Through causes nurtured for us over long ages, we now encounter the Buddha and hear the Dharma. We should rejoice at this. When the causal act is performed, one goes to the Pure Land. When it is not performed, seldom is birth there attained. In performing the causal act and going to be born, no discord arises. That is, to go is easy. Further, he states, through hearing that the Buddha's majestic virtue is great and vast, one attains the stage of non-retrogression. Jing Wen of Shanyin, master of the Tiantai school, states, because the Buddha's name arises from the body of true reality and of fulfillment, because it arises from the ocean of compassion, because it arises from the ocean of the vow, because it arises from the ocean of wisdom, because it arises from the ocean of the Dharma gates, simply to say the name of this one Buddha wholeheartedly is itself to say the name of all Buddhas. Because it embodies immeasurable virtues, it eradicates the obstructions of our karmic evil and enables us to be born in the Pure Land. Why should there be any doubt? Wan Chao, master of the Vinaya school, states, it goes without saying that in his great compassion, our Buddha revealed the Pure Land way, and with loving concern widely spread it through the teachings of the great vehicle. Though we see it with our eyes and hear it with our ears, we give rise to doubts and slander. We are self-complacent in our own sinking and drowning, without longing to overcome and rise. The Tathagata taught for the sake of such pitiful beings as ourselves. Truly, our doubts arise because we do not realize that this Dharma is unique and beyond the ordinary. It does not discriminate between wise and foolish. It does not differentiate between priesthood and laity. It does not question the length of one's performance of practice. It does not take into account the weight of the karmic evil one has committed. Only definitely settled Shinjin is required as the cause seed of birth. Further, he states, the conclusive expositions of the one vehicle all designate the land of bliss as their culmination. The resultant name stands alone as the most excellent in embodying the perfect accomplishment of myriad practices. Truly, Dharmakara, from the time of his causal stage, established his vows, held fast to his aspiration, pursued his practice to fulfillment, and embraced the benevolence to save beings for countless kalpas. There is no place at all, even so small as a mustard seed, where he did not abandon his life for our sake. Practicing the 6 paramitas of compassion and wisdom, he took in and guided all sentient beings without exception. With the 2 kinds of possessions, those within and without himself, he unfailingly responded to what beings sought. Bringing to maturity, thus, the opportunity and condition for saving each being, he fulfilled his practices and consummated his virtues, and thereupon perfectly realized the 3 Buddha bodies simultaneously. Needless to say, our Buddha Amida grasps beings with the name. Thus, as we hear it with our ears and say it with our lips, exalted virtues without limit grasp and pervade our hearts and minds. It becomes ever after the seed of our Buddhahood, all at once sweeping away a koti of kalpas of heavy karmic evil, and we attain the realization of the supreme enlightenment. I know truly that the name possesses not scant roots of good, but inexhaustible roots of good. Master Tzu Yan declares, only the Nembutsu is quick and true as the pure act that brings one to the land of peace. Therefore, practice it. If the 4 classes of Buddhists desire to break through their ignorance swiftly and eradicate forever all the karmic evil, heavy and light, arising from their commissions of the 5 grave offenses and the 10 transgressions, they should practice this teaching. If people desire to abide continuously in pure observance of the Mahayana or Hinayana precepts, to realize Nembutsu Samadhi, and to fulfill the Bodhisattva's practice of the paramitas, they should train themselves in this Dharma. If people desire that they be free of all fear at the time of death, that with both body and mind in repose, the host of sages appear before them and extend their hands to guide them, and that, rid of all defiling passions, they reach non-retrogression at once, so that without passing long kalpas, they immediately realize no birth, then they should study this Dharma. Tzu Yan states in a hymn, among full expressions of the truth, this is the fullest. Among consummate sudden teachings, this is the most consummate and most sudden. Tai Chi states in praise, it is the consummate sudden teaching of the one vehicle. It is genuine and single, free of mixture. Chi 2 of the Vinaya school states, concerning the Buddha's name, practices were performed and accumulated for kalpas, and those myriad virtues were all taken and manifested in the 4 characters Amida Butsu. Therefore, when one says the name, one acquires no small benefit. Young Jin of the Vinaya school states, if one says the auspicious name of the one Buddha and thinks on that Buddha now, one will unfailingly be possessed of the immeasurable virtues accumulated from the time Bodhisattva Dharmakara was in his causal stage until he reached the fulfillment of Buddhahood. Young Chin further states, all the Buddhas, after passing countless kalpas in practice, awaken to the reality of things as they are, and yet they grasp not a single thing. Hence when, on making great vows that are formless, they perform their practices, they do not abide in those excellent acts. When they realize enlightenment, they do not attain it. When they take abode, they do not adorn lands. When they manifest their powers, their supernatural powers are not supernatural powers. Hence, spreading their tongues over the great thousand-fold world, they teach the non-teaching. Thus they urge us to entrust ourselves to this Amida Sutra. This is utterly impossible for us to fathom with our minds and discuss with our lips. I believe that these inconceivable virtues of the Buddhas are instantaneously embodied in Amida's fulfilled adornments. Moreover, the practice of holding to a Buddha's name, though performed with other Buddhas, always includes Amida. Master Chai Xiang of the Sun Lun school says, question, how is it possible for Nembutsu Samadhi to eradicate so much karmic evil? Answer, Amida Buddha possesses immeasurable virtues. One's immeasurable karmic evil is eradicated because one thinks on the Buddha's immeasurable virtues. Phi Si of the Chan school states, the virtue of Nembutsu Samadhi is supreme. Because it is the chief of all practices, it is called the king of samadhis. Genshin, in his Essentials for Attaining Birth, states, it is taught that among the various acts performed by practicers, some are shallow and others are profound, but the act common to all is, quote, wholehearted, exclusive utterance of the name of the Buddha of immeasurable life. Among the 48 vows is one that, established especially for the gate of the Nembutsu, declares, quote, if sentient beings say my name and yet are not born, may I not attain the supreme enlightenment. Concerning the 6 kinds of virtue, Master Genshin states, 1. Think on the Buddha's virtue. All who say Namo Butsu, even once, have already fulfilled the Buddha way. Hence, I take refuge in and worship the supreme great field of virtues. Number 2. Think on the Buddha's virtue. The Buddha's regard for each sentient being with eyes of compassion is equal, as though each one were the Buddha's only child. Hence, I take refuge in and worship the unsurpassed Mother of Great Compassion. Number 3. Think on the Buddha's virtue. All the Mahasattvas of the 10 quarters bow reverently to Amida, the honored one. Hence, I take refuge in and worship the supreme honored one among beings of 2 legs. Number 4. Think on the Buddha's virtue. Hearing the Buddha's name, even once, is rarer than encountering the Adambara flower in bloom. Hence, I take refuge in and worship the one exceedingly rare to encounter. Number 5. Think on the Buddha's virtue. 2 honored ones do not appear at the same time in the 100 kotis of worlds. Hence, I take refuge in and worship the great Dharma King, rarely met with. Number 6. Think on Amida's virtue. The ocean of virtues of the Buddha Dharma is one and the same throughout past, present, and future. Honen, in his passages on the Nembutsu selected in the Primal Vow, states, Namu Amida Butsu is the act that leads to birth in the Pure Land. The Nembutsu is taken to be fundamental. If you desire to free yourself quickly from birth and death of the two excellent teachings, leave aside the path of sages, and choosing, enter the Pure Land way. If you desire to enter the Pure Land way of the two methods of practice, right and sundry, cast aside all sundry practices, and choosing, take the right practice. If you desire to perform the right practice of the two kinds of acts, true and auxiliary, further put aside the auxiliary, and choosing, solely perform the act of true settlement. The act of true settlement is to say the name of the Buddha. Saying the name unfailingly brings forth about birth, for this is based on the Buddha's primal vow. Clearly we know, then, that the Nembutsu is not a self-power practice. It is therefore called the practice of, quote, non-directing virtue on the part of beings. Masters of the Mahayana and Theravada and people burdened with karmic evil, whether heavy or light, should all in the same way take refuge in the great treasure ocean of the selected vow and attain Buddhahood through the Nembutsu. When one attains the true and real practice and Shinjin, one greatly rejoices in one's heart. Even more decisively will the ocean of beings of the 10 quarters be grasped and never abandoned when they have taken refuge in this practice and Shinjin. Therefore the Buddha is called Amida Buddha. This is other power. Accordingly, the Mahasattva Nagarjuna states that such persons, quote, immediately enter the stage of the definitely settled. Master Tan Luan states that they, quote, enter the group of the truly settled. We should reverently entrust ourselves to this practice and Shinjin. We should single-heartedly practice it. Truly, we know that without the virtuous name, we would lack the direct cause of birth. Concerning our practice and Shinjin that Amida directs to us for our going forth, there is, quote, one utterance, and in Shinjin there is, quote, one thought moment. The one utterance of practice reveals the consummation of the easy practice selected in the primal vow. Thus, the larger sutra states, the Buddha said to Maitreya, quote, if there are persons who, having heard the name of that Buddha, leap and dance with joy and say it even once, know that they receive the great benefit, that is, they acquire the unexcelled virtues. Master Shan Tao uses the phrase, quote, down to one utterance. Further, he states, one voicing, one utterance. Further, he states, wholehearted thought, exclusive utterance. Truly we know that the unexcelled great benefit is the true and real benefit of the one vehicle. The saying of the name once is one voicing. One voicing is one utterance. One utterance is single practice. Single practice is right practice. Right practice is the right act. The right act is right mindfulness. Right mindfulness is Nembutsu. That is Namu Amida Butsu. Thus, when one has boarded the ship of the vow of great compassion and sailed out on the vast ocean of light, the winds of perfect virtue blow softly, and the waves of evil are transformed. The darkness of ignorance is immediately broken through, and quickly reaching the land of immeasurable light, one realizes great nirvana and acts in accord with the virtue of Samantabhadra. Let this be known. These passages are clear testimony, revealing the true and real practice. We know indeed that this practice embodies the primal vow, in which the Nembutsu was selected and adopted. It is the supreme practice, rare and all-surpassing. It is the true and wondrous right Dharma, in which all virtues are perfectly fulfilled, and it is the great practice, ultimate and unhindered. Let this be known. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.